Hi, good morning. Today is December 6th, and today is the Kubeflow community meeting. And would like to remind everybody that this meeting is governed by the Kubeflow Code of Conduct. And we're here to discuss the latest activities on Kubeflow and give public updates to everyone that's concerned. So with that, we're starting off with a review of Kubeflow 1.7, and Daniela from the release team is going to give an update. Daniela.
Sure. Hi, folks. Thanks, Josh. So let's start with the timeline again. Just quickly remind everyone that the feature freeze is on January 25th next year. So we're approaching that date. And we also wanted to remind you that we have a list of dependency versions that you may want to check for that feature freeze. So just so you're aware, we're pushing for new versions like Kate's 125, Istio 1.116, et cetera. But yeah, that's just a friendly reminder of that. Friendly reminder of the tracking board. We have a tracking board. If you haven't seen it, that's where most of the working groups have pushed their issues for tracking all of the features, or most of the working groups have done it. Yeah, so it's there. Yeah.
Sorry if I'm getting you off track. I was just showing you.
No, it's fine. It's fine. You can show it. Perfect. The third item, I didn't add it, so let's wait for Dominic to come back and talk about that. We wanted to also talk about the state of features of each working groups. We want to know if we're getting along with timelines because of the feature freeze and the testing dates and all. We just want to know if all the working groups are okay with it, if we need some support from the release team or some changes. This is the time to speak. And if you're okay, just let us know. That's also very, very good to know. We're also trying to know if the testing is also aligned with our dependency list and the versions that we're pushing towards. Again, we're trying to push for Kate's 125, Istio 1.6, some other versions. So just make sure that your testing is aligned with that, and your working group is also pushing for these versions. And lastly, there has been a lot of changes in Kubeflow manifests. We have already some PRs merged or about to be merged, like Istio 1.16 is already merged. Some configurations for kind already merged. Some configurations for testing as well. So be aware that if you're about to push some things to Kubeflow manifest, be aware that those dependencies have changed already. So just I pinned all the things that have been changed already, and we're working on a PR for tracking all of the versions and all of the things that are already changed. So just so you know, we'll be sharing that link with you folks. And last item, distributions update issue. There's an issue, and Josh, if you can click on it, there's an issue where we are tracking all of the distributions participation in 1.7. So if your distribution is listed there, but it does not have a state, or if you're not listed there, please just comment. Make sure that everything is there, that the representative is all right, the state is fine, and that you just answer a couple of questions so that we just know about the distribution. And that's basically it.
Yeah, I think I saw something from AWS just like last night on this, right?
Oh, okay. I will double check and update. But yeah, if you see something that is not updated, just let me know and I will just change and update this table.
And I think Landon may be on the OpenShift. Is there anybody here from OpenShift that could speak to this?
That's correct. Yes, we will be participating in 1.7. Yes.
Okay.
So we need what are you asking for on this PR or this tracking issue, Daniela? Do you want them to formally provide a answer to the 3 questions?
Yes, exactly. Yes, it would be great if you can just comment so I can link your comment in this table and we just know, and basically to know, and the representative and all of that.
Okay.
So yeah, just comment on that. Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic update. My perspective on this is that January 25th sounds like a long way away. It's not. We have 2 holidays in between, at least in the United States, between now and then. My perspective would be that the working groups probably need to have line of sight visibility to be 50% done with development by the break, before the break. So, you know, maybe we'll ask how are we doing? I know a lot of the working groups have made lists of the items that they're working on. And I'm going to make one other big hairy challenge to the working groups, but also to the users out there. You know, we get a lot of feedback that we need to improve the documentation. So it would be great if we could get some documentation PR started before the holiday. I know it'd be hard to do this in some cases, but at least something in the glint of somebody's eye that this is going to be eventually what needs to be documented, because we do need to improve that. And I'd like to see that we get an early jump on it. So if you could think about that, if you're in a working group or you're a contributor, or if you're a user and you're looking to maybe help out a bit, documentation is a great place to start. And I think it's something that all of this will use. Any comments on the update? Daniela, fantastic job on this, by the way. I'm going to tease Dominic.
Perfect. Yeah, just if you folks from the working groups or the distributions need anything from the release team, just let us know regarding testing, regarding timelines, regarding dependencies, whatever. Please let us know. The more information we have, the better, and the sooner the better, of course.
Yeah, 2 other dependencies I'd like us to tie down a little tighter is on the cert manager, is to get the exact version of that. And then also I saw that the update to customize was, or the problem with customize was unblocked, and it looks like we're going to be able to upgrade customize to 4.0 in this next release. So I'd also like to make sure that we're at least looking at that dependency as well, and communicating that as openly as possible.
Sure.
All right, great job. Final comments on 1.7. Anybody have any questions? Okay. We will need to start to highlight what the user benefits are on that and highlight the top features and all that. We'll be pushing on that even more here over the next few weeks. All right, CNCF donation. I think I know there was a proposal from James Wu. I don't know if James is on the phone. James, are you here? Doesn't look so. So anyway, any folks that would like to see this proposal here, I found it a little bit weird the way that it was written, but I guess you can follow it. There's 4 files. There's 3 committees that will be developed. And you have them here: the conformance, the steering committee, and the technical oversight committee. And this is just a loose structure to allow us to start to formulate how to build out the community. As the way that I see it, you know, the steering committee, and especially what they've developed in this first PR is an interim steering committee, is really like the kickstart to get the structure put into place. And the steering committee will then develop the charter for the steering committee, as well as for the technical oversight and the conformance committee. If it continues in the way that Kubeflow has been run over the last multiple years, the power of the organization and the positions are going to still rest, most likely, as I would see it, in the people that are actually doing the work. So that's still at the working group level. But I think that the folks on the technical oversight committee and in the working group are probably going to have the most say into what's actually happening, being committed, and how things actually get done. The oversight committee is going to be looking at logos and licensing and those type of things. So I believe that the commit also nominated folks to be on the interim steering committee. The three people that were put on there were myself, Taya, and James Wu. So Taya Lampkin and James from Google. So I think that this has been out for, here's the folks that were suggested for the committee, just so you all can see that.
Josh, can you do me a favor? Because I think a lot of people can see the PRs, but maybe people watching this call don't know how to go look at the files. So can you click and show people how to actually see what it looks like, not in GitHub, but like when you go to files changed and then go over there and click view file?
Yeah, I think even if you go, I don't know if you've done the view file, I thought it only brought up a piece of each of them.
Well, it brings up more on the other ones. I'm actually writing an email about this right now because I think people can see this, but it's hard to read in this. It's hard to read in this format to see it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I said but I think probably you're right. The third document down probably gives you the best idea of what the interim Kubeflow steering committee looks like and the responsibilities here. So I probably should have started here. I apologize that I didn't do a good job of explaining this, but the interim steering committee is going to establish the long-term steering committee, the conformance committee, and the technical oversight committee. So these are these three here, and create the committee charters and work with the CNCF TOC to complete the due diligence. That's the interim proposal right now, right? And that's probably, if to your point, this is probably the best overview of what's going on in this proposal. Now, I think that we probably could discuss this a long time. I don't know if folks want to spend time on this right now. We have a fairly large agenda, but typically we have a second meeting that's just dedicated to talking about the Kubeflow transition to CNCF. What are people's view on this? Should we spend another 10 or 15 minutes on this right now? Do we want quick conversation, maybe 5 minutes now, and then set up another time to talk about it? What are people's thoughts here?
Well, I didn't see anything about it on the mailing list. So what I'm doing, actually working on it now, is adding this to just to the mailing list so people can see it, and putting the instructions on how to see those files, because unless you live in GitHub or GitHub is part of your workflow, you might be able to see the PR, but you're not going to, some people may not be able to know how to go see that file, right? So I'm adding this to an email to send to the mailing list, so that, because I think I'm the only one that's commented on the PR. And it's only been out 8 days. And so I don't think a lot of people know about it or see it, because one, it's not on the website. Like, you can't just go click on it. You've got to be in GitHub to see it. And two, there wasn't anything sent to the mailing list about it. So I'm getting ready to do that. So I don't know that people know about it. And then three, including those instructions, because now that we're getting and encouraging more folks that, don't write code to get involved, I'm including those instructions on how you see that. So, I don't know. And then I'll probably put a link into Slack about it. So I don't know if there's anywhere else I need to send that, but I just realized this morning that nobody had really commented on it. So that probably means nobody's seen it.
Yeah, I would agree. I had put this up because James had put this in here to give an update. And my bad on that because I did not ping him and ask him to join this meeting. I thought he might show up. But in general, I think there does need to be a review of this and a full evaluation. I think what you're talking about makes a lot of sense. And I think we should see how to follow up. I think all those things that you recommended, if you want to help with that or do it yourself or need help, I think that's all makes complete sense to me.
I'll send it after this call because I've been working on it this morning. So.
All right. Well, fantastic. Any other comments on that? This is an important topic. I want to discuss it. I think it's actually a separate meeting, but any other comments that anybody wants to bring up on this topic right now? All right. We at least we've made people aware. We'll keep going and we'll do a better job going forward. Sorry, I wasn't as clear on how to present that as I probably should have, but at least you have it now. Applications and add-ons. I don't know if Kimonis is here or Anna.
Yes, we both are.
So I was really appreciative of this work, but I thought that if you could just give kind of an update on what's going on here so folks can kind of get a view of this in, 5-7 minutes, whatever you need, or whatever you need in terms of time. Could you kind of update the community on your progress, please?
I can give a little bit of a high overview I have for the contrib effort, although Anna is the main one that's driving and doing great work there. A quick heads up for everyone to be in sync. We have the committed guidelines on how we expect the files for the currently contrib named components in manifests. And for 1.7, we're targeting on at least, for now, giving a note on which components are not maintained anymore, and then gradually deprecate them as well after the release or alongside the 1.7 release. And we had until now some great updates from Seldon where they've both updated their files. They have everything is according to the instructions. They even have tests committed in the manifest repo so that we can then in the future try and see how to automate this and maybe run this periodically on each release and see what works and what not. So there's some progress on that front. Anna, is there anything else you'd like to also comment there regarding that effort that I missed?
Yeah, so I'll just add on. If you are one of the owners for the contrib file, like it'd be great if you could check out the open PRs or the tracking issue to see what's going on and help us either let us know that you'll continue maintaining it and updating it. Else, we have a PR open to mark the directory as unmaintained, and we will eventually remove them after the 1.7 release.
I had captured some of these issues and pull requests. Are there any one where somebody should be starting? Is it this one here? Perhaps this 2311?
Yes, it's this one.
Okay, so this is just super fantastic, in my opinion, that we're cleaning all this up. This really needs to be done prior to the CNCF. It's just good hygiene anyway, but you can see how much progress has happened. And I think this is a best practice, once again, that Anna has helped kick off, and I truly appreciate that. Now, I don't want to get caught too much on this, and I don't want to get you both taken off guard, but I do think that there's this terminology about applications, add-ons, core components, these type of contrib. Are those terminologies going to be cleaned up as well? And is there do you guys need to think about that and come back and talk to us? Or is there something that you can kind of simplify how the terminology is going to work with applications and add-ons?
So I I have a little bit of work in progress, at least that I'd like the community to evaluate. I'm planning to at least create a proposal, or I think it's probably it's going to be a proposal where try to set some clear terminology in what we use, because indeed right now, for example, we have in manifest, we have the contrib folder, but in the website, this correlates to the add-ons part of the page, which is a little bit confusing. Also, we use the terminology components for the website, but the manifest repo says applications. But also the Kubeflow pipeline has a terminology of component. So I want to make a small proposal on how to actually establish the terminology here for everyone to be in sync. I'm leaning towards the word application for anything that's developed within Kubeflow and at least the existing apps and components that we have. The motivation was from the early days of Kubeflow, where we even had an application CR to define a whole Kubeflow installation. So this is how I took inspiration for the naming. But in any case, I'm going to create a proposal because at least I believe that we should try to standardize on the terminology everywhere. In my mind, also both from manifest and the website, since these are the places that folks go to install Kubeflow. So this needs to be in sync and to be clear in people's minds what is what and where goes what.
Thank you. Is there any timeline, help, anything there that, do you want to work through this, come up with a proposal, kind of, do you need a couple weeks on this, or what's your thought on this, Kimonos, in terms of when people can comment and evaluate what's the proposal, right?
I would ideally like this to be standardized for 1.7.
Yeah.
Ideally, would like that once we have a proposal for all of the comments, and not for us to have an agreement until at most when the feature freeze starts. So then we can start and do the changes real quick, whether this is on manifest or the website, and have some cycles to catch any bugs that may arise with that for 1.7. So I would ideally like to have the proposal up within the next week or 2 weeks at worst, to have it there at least for the holidays and for the next weeks of January as people pick up speed to have this readily available.
Yeah, there's a domino effect. Once we get to a place where we have agreement, then documents and probably some, who knows, maybe some coding or refactoring of repos have to happen. So I'm very much want to make sure that we keep this in sight as we go forward. But I think it's something that will help people understand better, because we call the same thing two different things at times. So tribal knowledge. Yep. Okay, thank you, Kimonos. Thank you, Anna. Baby steps, phase 1, clean up the contrib. Phase 2, let's clean up the terminology. Really cool. Please help them when they reach out, or if you have a component that needs to be updated or deprecated. I've seen a lot of folks step up and say, look, we're not supporting this anymore. It should be deprecated. Please help them. Okay. I am so excited about this next topic because it shows community growth. And I have to say that the working groups have been groomed, probably bad word, helping folks along the contribution ladder to now get more permissions and become more influential in the community. And we've seen that in a couple different of the working groups, and I think they'll start to be commented on here in the near future. I don't know if Janu is on or
Yes.
yeah. Janu, I think you have some folks or one person's going to be promoted, and maybe Kimonis, you too.
Yes, so I can talk from the Automel side. So
Yeah.
There is one one approver that we are planning to have. He's Yuki, and he has been a long contributor, probably like more than two years, and he's basically his company is basically using Caterpillar in production, and I would say very committed coder, and as well as like he's very active in many of the review comments as well. So I would like from the working group side, like we would definitely want to promote him, and we would like to have more users as well in the future to be in the same ladder, get to the approver or the leadership side, so that like the community is much stronger than before.
And we're seeing this groundswell, and I think you guys have done a great job, you and Andre. Andre, you have some folks that are also kind of interested in participating as well, right?
Yes, Josh. I just have like a few questions regarding to like the link that you shared. So should we ask the community to propose the feedback on this? I think this doc is not ready yet, right?
It's not ready yet at all, but what I did put this in here for, just to kind of give a view of you know, when we look at what you had put together, which I think was great, which is trying to have a more clear process of how to promote contributors to leads and chairs. But, you know, as I start, and I think that's a great place, and maybe having some goals here about using consistent terminology and setting expectations properly. And then, as you had put on here, some of these to-dos, and maybe you can talk to this one here, just briefly.
Yeah, because I mean, the main idea was to just keep the community aware. So we were thinking about like, should we have like unified process to promote people to become more involved in the project? Like currently different working groups, they have a different process how to be promoted in the tech, like to become a leader or to become a co-chair. And we had like the quick discussion with Josh and John and Kimonos to see what others think about this proposal, other working groups, such as like pipelines, serving, manifests, and just to see the community, like, can we build a unified process, or should it be up to the working group how to make this promotion, right?
Yeah, I think
so this is just yeah, go ahead.
I just tried to put this together. I know this is a little bit of an eye chart here, but you know, I looked at all the links on the website and tried to map them into terminology that we're using, you know, the chair, the working group lead, the sub-project owner. So that was all in this, you know, working group governance. But then there's a membership link that then goes deeper into the sub-project owner, the approver, the reviewer, the member, right? And describes what each of these need to do. This is a simplistic view in this chart. But then there's also terminology in the owners link and the contributors link, where you get into even more terminology and different things that go. And I just tried to map that myself so I could figure out how all these things, all these links right here, these 4 links were, you know, kind of combined into trying to document this process that, once again, I think we need to clean up some terminology expectations. But the good thing is, I think that we have a lot of people that are interested, and if we do this in a, you know, a coherent manner, that people are going to have more responsibilities and you know, authority to get done the types of things they want to do.
And what, just to add, so here, the most important thing would be the commitment to the project, right? Long-term commitment. So, and that is what we have given importance to, and that should be one of the top requirement for any of these process to satisfy for, like, if we actually want to promote someone, right? like it should not be a single person's decision there. But I like the way how a person can join Kubeflow or organization right now, where when someone actually wants to get in, like we actually put the contributions and like what he has actually, how he has contributed to Kubeflow, right? Something like that would, I think that would increase the confidence of this decision-making process.
I agree that these things should be standard. The definition of chair, work group lead, sub-project owner, like all of these definitions should be consistent across the project. Like they're all over the place. And it's hard to tell people, go get involved in the Kubeflow community. Oh, if this is your interest. And I think I'm super excited about the fact that this is being talked about, like you are, Josh. Like it's hard for people to get involved, and I'm hearing this on a more consistent basis all the time. This is the hardest community to try to get involved with and do stuff with. And, you know, nowhere do we define sustained and significant contribution. Like you were saying, like, what do you mean by long-term contribution? Is it sustained and significant? Is it, okay, so like, and then what are we doing about folks who might not write code, but can help with organizing meetings and, you know, other things other than writing code? How are we also allowing for them to participate in each of these working groups? We need to also have an idea for those non-code participants, because what if it's data scientists getting involved, testing your stuff and giving you feedback, or, you know, whatever. There's a whole host of things that people can do besides write code to be helpful with each project or each working group and the overall project. So what are we also doing for those folks as well, whose contributions may not be able to be seen in GitHub?
Yeah, I mean, I think those are good points. I actually spent a little time over the weekend reviewing some of these docs. And I would say that if you have not looked at these docs, there are some very specific requirements of a reviewer, right? Here's a reviewer, 3 months in, 5 PRs, 20 substantial PRs, sponsored by a sub-project owner. I mean, there are some very specific, like here's the approver, you know, 3 months, 10 substantial PRs, 30 PRs in the code base. I mean, I'm not sure that we've adhered to these. I'm not sure that we need to adhere to these as specifically as they are written here. And I kind of adhere to the working groups having a little bit more flexibility. To your point though, Amber, if you come in from the top and you try to figure out Kubeflow from the top, it's very hard. I think that if you come in at the working group level and join a working group meeting and you raise your hand and say to a working group lead that you want to help, I think they'll figure out something for you to do.
I completely agree, Josh. And Amber, I'm just curious, like with your interactions before, like you're talking about like people were finding it difficult to get in, right? Like it is interesting to understand what the reasons were there, right? Why was it difficult to get into Kubeflow community? Is it that like they didn't find avenues to contribute? Because we are having community meetings, we are having working group meetings, we are having Slack channels. If people couldn't get into these groups and may contribute in any way, right? Not just code, but in any way, I think then there is a very serious problem which we have to tackle.
Yeah, and that's a longer discussion, but just have somebody that doesn't know anything about Kubeflow go to the Kubeflow website and tell them to get involved.
But Amber, I think that's the case with any project, right? Not just with Kubeflow, right? Like if you want to
Oh yeah,
do
I've been involved in probably close to 75 open source projects in the last 13 years. So I can see their points, and I can also point to other projects that are a whole lot easier for people to get involved in. So but just go search for governance. Just go search for example, Kubeflow governance without knowing where that page is at. or to the point of the CNCF PR. Without knowing about that PR, where do you find it? If you go look on the website, there's nothing that says process that you can go look at. You've got to have a GitHub account, and you got to be in GitHub. So
yeah, I think your
I
point
just
is all valid. I think we should open up another issue on this. I think, unfortunately, I hijacked Andre's initial thinly defined thing was,
sorry.
how do we do community promotions? And now we're to, how do we improve community membership and make it simple, which are both necessary, right? So I think we need that, to your point, Amber.
Yeah, I
Just a
love the
small-
topic, and
yeah.
I'm sorry I hijacked it too. Sorry.
No, it was my fault. I hijacked it first.
Just
Andre-
2 small points from my side. Yeah, I just want to say first on, like, to your point, Amber, I think like if we improve the documentation, feel much clearer, right? When the newcomer just come to the Kubeflow website and you see how to be involved and make it clear, we will solve all these kind of problems. Because currently the documentation is split between the community GitHub repo, plus like our contributor guides and other things, right? And this tied to my second point. Can we achieve the global consensus between all of the working group leads to have the similar process? So from our side, AutoML and training, we can design the process. But what about other working groups? Like pipelines, manifests, serving, notebooks? If yes, it will be much clearer for others to become the part of the working group. If no, we can think about how to make it easier. So I just want to hear from other working groups. Are they okay with that, or they want to have their own unique process to be promoted for new contributors?
I'd like to provide
I guess
some.
yeah. Go ahead, Amos.
I'd like to just provide some thoughts that I've had on this. So initially, I first of all, I agree that we should have the same roles and approach with and process, with a small asterisk for all the working groups. For example, we should have the same terminology that we have approvers, reviewers, sub-project owners, tech leads, and chairs. What we have now, and actually I would even argue that what we have now is actually pretty good for helping us scale, because while it's a little bit complicated, if we can sit down and explain it, I think the current process that we have makes sense, because there are a lot of steps. For example, we have the normal reviewer, approver flow for different parts of a repository, for example. Then we can have sub-project owner, sub-project owners, these things that we already have also in the community repo, which are the owners for different repos, for example. So I can be a sub-project owner for a repo, but I'm not yet a tech lead. So I can still be on a root owner, but not be a tech lead yet. Then criteria for how can a sub-project owner migrate and become a tech lead. And then how can someone, a tech lead, become a chair and have also a say on the roadmap and the priorities. So on the one hand, I would really like for all of the working groups to have the same terminologies and same roles. But on the other hand, I like Josh's argument that I would like to also, while I agree with to have some documented criteria on how can I, for example, I'm an approver for one component, how can I become a sub-project owner? While I agree with how we should have a process for this or for each working group, I believe that on this particular point, on the exact criteria, we should be a little bit not too strict and demand the exact same, at least, requirements for all the repos. For example, if one repo does not get the same amount of commits, we cannot expect someone to become a sub-project owner to have like 30 PRs, because this is the same standard we have for another repo that has way a lot more PRs. So to wrap up my point, I completely believe that we should have the same roles for the different working groups. Having the same criteria, I think, would also make sense for the project. Like, as John said, long-term commitment, which is huge. shown that someone has created a big work item for the project, which also shows they can drive, they have technical expertise or can work with others. We can define about what those criteria are, but on the same hand, I would like us to be a little bit flexible on, depending on the scale and the size of some of the working groups, to not be just say, okay, we need 30 PRs for all sub-project owners. This is the same for all the working groups, but have some leeway for based on the size of the working groups. But these are just some of my thoughts, and I'll try to explain them to the docs as well. And I believe that in Andre's doc, if we can expose, like, have some frequently asked questions or expose these things more, the current doc model that we have is more than fine for scaling as well.
Last one to Kimonos.
Yeah, I would like strongly encourage you to please give your feedback on the doc that Josh shared. It will be really beneficial for us to just see your opinion on that. Any ideas that you have in mind, and we can construct based on this, like how we can move forward, right? And especially from the working groups, other working groups' opinion. Yep.
Yeah, and I apologize, Andre, for hijacking your document and throwing some of those chart and all those references there. I just didn't understand it all myself, so I had to go through it. So let's two things. Tactically, we need to promote these folks that are coming in. I'd like to communicate when they're promoted, what they actually got promoted to, and have some consistent terminology, right? But in the but as we get those promotions done and highlight those and spotlights or whatever, we need to clean up a little bit of this terminology and other things as we go on the doc. So we can do, one in a longer term, but I think this was a great initiative by you and Janu and Kimonos to kind of kick this off, and thank you. Test infrastructure and development tools, deployment tools. I think there was some discussion here, and maybe I'm poking at something I shouldn't be, but about, customized Juju, Helm, tools that can be used in test infrastructure and deployment. I don't mean to be this Helm promoter, but I'm going to be, only because when I look at this CNCF chart that shows that, most of the people are using Helm, and we get these feedback that people complain that we don't support Helm, I'm kind of like, okay, we've always supported customized. I think there's good technical reasons for that. I don't mind having Juju as another option if it makes sense. If folks want to contribute Helm, fine. But I guess the point is there was this open issue here, perhaps. I don't know, Kimonos, maybe this was this Helm chart issue. Nobody replied to it. So if people don't reply to the Helm issue, and it's the most popular packaging tool for Kubernetes, then okay. But we're going to move forward with the places there where we have support and customize HAS 4.0 being upgraded. I can't see where we move away from that, and that would be the number one thing that we would focus on. But I know that there was some interest in Juju as well. So I just wanted to tee this up and let people know. Any comments on this, and is this a manifest working group discussion, or is this something else?
Some comments, at least from manifest, and at least to make it clear for everyone, the discussion for Juju is around how we wanted to test manifests, because we're discussing how to be able to better use AWS's services for running more robust tests, and we're evaluating using Juju to spin up AWS resources. This is why Juju comes into the picture. Now, regarding the rest of the tools like Customize and Help, as just mentioned, we've seen a lot of requests for Helm because it's also a very popular package management system. Regarding who should be the one to take a decision on let's use Helm, I also agree that it's not like we would ever do a switch and like, okay, now we're doing Helm, goodbye to Customize. And I think this is the most important thing for everyone to be in sync. I think this effort will first need to be also part of each working group, because the working groups will also need to be able to evaluate if they can support also having manifests for Helm. And I think that we're also going to need, aside from the dedicated working groups, some centralized effort for someone to drive such an effort and say, okay, now we're doing customized. How can someone use Helm, and how do we cover the existing workflows, or do we want to cover the existing workflows? How can someone go from their customized manifest over to Helm? What would the upgrade process be? So in my mind, I'm not against using Helm. But I believe that we need some. If folks are really interested into it, we need to see some movement and someone to actually driving this effort, and with the help of the working groups, of course, to actually see how to implement this. But at least this is a personal view. I think that right now the working groups are overbooked, and I don't think alone will have the bandwidth to also handle the Helm upgrade as well. So if someone would be interested in driving such a big effort, I think it makes sense. I think that this discussion needs to be had with the working groups as well, because it's their manifests that also need to be up to date. And we'll need also a somewhat centralized effort on how this process is going to end up, upgrade nodes, going from customized to Helm, etc. These are my thoughts at least.
Okay, thank you, Kimonis. Anyone else have comments on this particular topic? Again, I'm trying to be responsive to the survey, to comments and issues, comments on the web that I see.
I do have a question.
Just quickly, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Daniela. You can go first.
Sure. I do have a question on the test infra. Do we have like a specification, if anyone wants to volunteer, do we have specification of where are we going to run this, how, which tests, whatever, so that we know? I mean, if anyone wants to volunteer, that we have this information available, or is it just like free and however you want to do it?
There is a Google Doc right now where we're trying to standardize on this process. I'll share it. I think we can even expose it even further. So for now, this is the central place where we expose how to do this kind of testing. So this could be a great place to start. Regarding what to test, it's mostly we want to be able to have a Kubernetes cluster that is big enough, and we can do even run the existing tests that we have for manifest, for example, because right now we can't install the whole Kubeflow. This is just the first step. Just have a more powerful cluster. And what are the tools for us to get a Kubernetes cluster up and running? Right now we're evaluating Juju for spinning up AWS resources. This is this state.
Okay.
I didn't have this on here, and we probably should put it in one of the follow-up conversations, but there is some discussion on this around the conformance tests that are being developed, and there is some discussion there about what are the infrastructure requirements for the conformance tests, which I think are going to be more lightweight than our manifest testing, but it is a data point that is in the same universe. So maybe we'll discuss that later on the conformance testing. I don't have it here, but
I can put the doc here.
Okay. I think that's a good place to discuss. I don't know that, okay. So we've talked about this. I don't think there's anything that's terribly off track here, unless Kimonis, is there, Daniela, anybody from the release team, is there anything that's like terribly off track around the test infra? We had a lot of challenges around test infra in the last release. Maybe I should restate that. We maybe needed the test infra to be set up, whatever. Do we have line of sight for the working groups test infrastructure for 1.7 at this point? Do we know how we're doing it?
The phrase line of sight means what are our goals for like 1.7?
We have a pretty good idea how it's going to work, and we feel pretty comfortable it's going to work. Or are we
Oh.
still trying to figure it out? Like it's still kind of foggy.
Dominic shared a document, right, where we have been collecting all this information about each working group. There are still some pending things and some things that are unclear for a couple of working groups, but I think we have been at least gathering enough information to know where the working groups are at the moment in the testing area.
Janu, would you and Andre, would you guys, Kimonis, would you guys agree? James?
For pipeline, we currently have the testing infra for the pipeline working group, so it should be fine. But regarding adding kind of like Helm testing, that probably is the manifest that combine kind of all the Kubeflow components together, and then is the final frontier for delivering our manifest. So it's probably where fit in the most to introduce a new tool like Helm.
There were even in the training side, there's an issue tracking for other deployment tools, but again, at the end, we finalized on keeping the same, like having the same manifest itself because of the extra burden to sync, to keep all different deployment tools in sync. So we still maintain just a manifest, and if some community member is interested in maintaining other deployment tools, he's welcome to do it, but we haven't merged any other deployment tools right now in any of our repository.
And on this topic, actually wondering, so why users actually asking about the Helm charts? Is it because it's the main EIC tool for their infrastructure? Like, for example, Customize can be easily pluggable to Terraform or to Pulumi or to maybe Helm. I don't know if Helm has like the driver for Customize. Do we know like why actually all of the users ask for the Helm charts from the Kubeflow?
Primarily, they are having a Helm environment in their company, right? That is the primary reason in all the conversations. So they already have lots of Helm charts, and they just want to keep on using the same deployment tools. So they have built deployment tools around Helm. So it's not possible to. In most of the situations, it's not possible for them to change or customize commands to invoke some other manifest.
I guess the problem we might face that different companies will use different tools, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
Not all of them using Helm. So why we should choose Helm in that case?
I'm not saying that we should. All I'm trying to do is, Andre, is Helm has 25,000 users on their Slack channel. We have 8, right?
Okay.
Helm seems to be very popular as a package manager. We've had some people ask for it, but so I'm trying not to ignore it. And I'm pushing very hard to say, if there are end users that really want this, they need to raise their hand and say, yeah, I'm here, I'm going to help, and I'll be involved in the development and the testing as much as possible. If we don't see that, I think we just back away from Helm at this point, which is kind of where my gut feel is where we're at. But I don't want to shut down just because we've always done it with Customize, right? I want to be open that there are other tools out there and that we're listening. Does that make sense?
I think
Yeah,
we don't need to.
Yeah, go ahead, James.
Sorry, I think we don't need to choose one of these many because we already have Customized, and I think it's probably fine to continue using it. But for the Helm, like we can consider adding a new option for people who have already adopted Helm and want to use Kubeflow. And we can say, okay, if you are using Helm, this is another deployment approach for you. But for people who are using Customized, then you have no problem continue using it, and we still have this default deployment option, which is Customized.
And just to add, in training,
because
we
it's still
had Helm charts before, and it was a non-trivial effort to keep them in sync, because there would be some PRs which would just fix manifest, there would be some other PR which would just look at Helm. So it was getting more and more difficult over time, and that was one reason that we dropped, and then just went on to stick to one deployment model.
All right.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
from my
propose-
perspective, it looks like the deployments working group kind of responsibility to have these features. So Customize is very easy to integrate to other AIC tools, such as Terraform or Pulumi, as I mentioned. So yeah, I just want to hear more feedback from the users. So why they choose Helm? Is it because of their infrastructure, or they have additional like considerations compared to Customize, right?
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, a little bit of technical topic over here, but actually I personally use both Customize and Helm for the same project. So my recommendation is like first use Customize to build a manifest, and then that manifest can be fit into Helm. So what we actually can do is like the output of Customize can become the input of Helm. And it might probably make it easier for you to maintain. But this is a detailed technical discussion. Yeah. Go ahead, Josh.
All right, I'm gonna try to cover a couple of topics quickly at the end because I ran out of time. My bad on this about not keeping the Helm conversation, whatever. Upgrades, just so the users know, currently the upgrade we've discussed on the release team is out of scope for release team delivery. It doesn't mean that there aren't ways to do upgrades with Kubeflow. It just means that the release team is not going to focus on an upgrade template or pattern. There are ways to upgrade Kubeflow. Folks have proven it many times in the past, and the distributions can help you there. One thing I would like to ask is that we should be working in a way to have an upgrade. I think a phase one of that is documentation. And one of the important documentations might be documenting the breaking changes that are coming in 1.7, at least for folks that have to do DIY or even the distribution. So important for the working groups to think about, upgrades are going to be coming at some point. I think breaking changes are important to document. Please think about that. I'm going to cut on these two quick ones. Updating, installing Kubeflow. I think we all decided on this. I think there was a bug here or an upgrade that was needed on the kubeflow.org website. Anna, did we get things updated for VMware on installing Kubeflow? Did that happen, or are we still blocked?
That was merged yesterday.
Okay, fantastic. So two things, thanks to the folks at Google for upgrading the image. So now we can upgrade the website. And two, I believe we still have this pattern now to just add new distributions to the installing Kubeflow page until we figure out the long-term plan about how we take care of that page. Next week's meeting, there was a request by Matthew to move the meeting back to the original 5:30 p.m. time because they weren't getting enough people to show up at 5:30 Pacific time rather than 8 a.m. London time. So we would go back to the original time for next week's meeting. I hate to give up this quickly on building the European community, but this is Matthew's recommendation. Anybody have opinions on this?
I think we're the wrong audience to answer that. Can we, I don't know, can we send an email out to the list, or can we we're all here. We may be the wrong, we're answering for a whole separate group of people in a different time zone.
Yeah. So I'm getting pressured to make the change. Maybe I can figure out a way to do this even in the short term. Our goal was kind of to keep that meeting at 8 a.m. London time through the end of the year. I'll talk to Matthew and see what he has to say.
What are we doing to promote it? Are we putting it out on the mailing list? Are we putting it out on Slack? Are we reminding people? If we're not doing any of that, and we haven't done any of that, then we might want to try promoting that meeting before giving up on that meeting.
Yeah. Let me push a little bit on Matthew on that one, and I'll get back to y'all. Anyway,
I think
this week's
yeah.
meeting is supposed to be the alternative time meeting.
Yeah, I think Amber has a good point because originally the proposal of 8 a.m. London time is like for Matthew, right? So is it possible to collect input from the another group's people and say what is your preferred time to join the Kubeflow community meeting, and maybe we can make a decision based on the feedback.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. All right, we'll see how things come up on that. And then super important other projects that are going on. Bento ML, I know Eric's here. Eric, you had some news, right? Would you like to give a 1-minute update on where we are with Bento? At least he was here. I don't know if he still is. I think they actually had some code that was merged and some documentation going. The ML Flow folks are going to be back in. I think the Ray stuff has lost a little steam, but then, you know, I periodically see Julius making some progress. So we need to get some updates on these things. And then the security and the data science. Amber, hate to give you last minute response, but is there something that you would like to promote here at the very end of this meeting?
Those who spoke up during Kubeflow Summit that said they wanted to be, they're interested in security working group. I'm going through the archive channels and I'll be adding them to the security Slack group, and then trying to at least have one meeting before the holiday starts. And then, you know, then I'll just work on the data science one, because we really need to have a data science group. We need to have the outreach group, and we need to have a distributions group. And so I don't know how, like with the transition to the CNCF, if we can add new working groups, but at a minimum, we can at least start getting interested parties to join a Slack group and just have at least one meeting before the holidays. And then in the meantime, you and Taya and James can figure out, can we add new working groups during this transition, or can we just do ad hoc meetings until the transition is complete to incubation, and then we can add a working group? So without that guidance, I just getting interested folks together to join. So
is it possible that there could be separate a list of core working groups that are officially supported working groups, and then there also be additional out of scope working groups that, as far as the application with the CNCF goes, will be considered not officially part of the you know, of the KF community, but will actually be you know, kind of, you know, a non-formally affiliated organization until allowing groups to be quickly created when they're needed and added to the, you know, and added to the organization's formal you know, configuration later, as you know, when it's, you know, when we've had the time to merge those in.
Yeah, that's what I was asking Josh to find out. That's exactly what I was asking Josh to find out. So you summed it up better than I did. So yeah.
Yes, we need to figure out how to take on some of these topics that are I hate to use the word at the core, but they're not they're necessary, but they're not something that we have formal structure for at this point. So yeah, and Amber, I guess people will watch, you'll put stuff out on either the Slack or in Kubeflow Discuss
Correct.
for folks to get involved in those type of meetings. Okay. So look, I apologize about running late today or not having, I need to do better at keeping the agenda moving. So I'll take that feedback, other feedback that people want and to run this meeting better or focus on content items. But I think we're attacking some of the very hard things that we haven't done before. And I really appreciate the initiative by folks to step up. Please help them, right? Some of these things that really need to get cleaned up before we go to the CNCF, we do need people's working level and contributors to come and help. So please try to do that. Any final comments? Anybody else want to say anything before we close out today? I apologize for not watching the time. Okay, well, hopefully this was helpful. And go out and do something special. Let us know about it. Really enjoy it. Have a good week. Bye now.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.